bring you what is another big developing story as far as tragedies in the country are concerned. Gauteng Premier David Makhura revealing that police have tracked some of the suspects in that Soweto tavern massacre, but they've tracked them all the way to a neighbouring country. I take you all the way back to July. People arriving at the tavern in a taxi and randomly start shooting at the patrons. 15 people had lost their lives. So suspects have been identified. How many exactly? That's why we have eNCA reporter Silindelo Masikane on that story for us. And Sli, hello to you. So first of all, let's just start off with, we can briefly, the number of suspects that we believe are now being tracked.
Well, we now know the official number is 5 suspects at this point. Following that legislature briefing from the Gauteng Premier, we had an idea that it seems investigations are progressing, because for some time now, police have been quite mum in terms of actually telling us where they are. We know that arrests have been made in a number of the other shootings around Gauteng, but this one in particular that happened in Soweto on the 10th of July in Nomzamo, nothing has been said in terms of the progress that's been made. There have been hints here and there from politicians. Police Minister Bheki saying that, you know, they were suspects that they had found, that they were tracking. And now we know that at least 5 suspects have been traced to a SADC country. At this point, police are still not wanting to tell us exactly which country, but it does seem as though detectives have traced them to one of our neighbouring countries, and it does seem as though conversations are being held with their counterparts in that particular country. Let's just take a listen to what Gauteng Police Commissioner Mawela had to say.
Yeah, my detectives are doing very well, obviously led by my deputy here, Major General Kumalo. They've identified those who are responsible or those who perpetrated these crimes. And they even approached the court. We got the J50, the warrant of arrest for those individuals. We know that those people, they've left the country. And my deputy here, he also went and discussed with his counterpart in that country, because we do have the bilateral relations with the countries around here. We also have the SARCO team, which is working together with all the law enforcement agencies in the SARCO region. So the guys have been identified. He have conveyed the message to his counterpart in that country. We don't want to reveal it now. And as soon as the colleagues have done their part, that other side, obviously we do have the extradition agreement with those countries. We also have the mutual legal assistance with those countries. We won't have a challenge to can bring them over to come and stand trial once being arrested in those countries.
And there it is, and you touched on it briefly as well. I was expecting to hear the Gauteng Police Commissioner use the word extradition.
Yes.
And that's what makes the SADC investigation so tricky, doesn't it?
Yeah, so at least we know that within the SADC region, there are quite good extradition treaties. In fact, it shouldn't be too difficult to have these suspects extradited back to South Africa to face the law here. But we know that the Deputy Police Commissioner, that is Major General Mbuso Khumalo, is the one actually leading the investigations into this particular tavern massacre that I believe it is, because we had more than a dozen people killed in one evening. I mean, Gareth, we spoke to one of the survivors just yesterday, and you can imagine that the mere fact that we don't have anybody at least arrested and before the courts leaves that community quite vulnerable, especially those who were in the tavern, who may be able to identify these suspects. And those in Nomzamo are still quite fearful for their lives. And of course, those who lost their loved ones want to know who is responsible and what the motive is. We still don't know. But let's just take a listen to what the Deputy Police Commissioner had to say around these 5 suspects, what we know about them, but obviously still not wanting to reveal the country. Let's take a listen.
The total is 5, the suspects that we are looking for. But I'm not going to reveal, like my provincial commissioner, the country. But it is true that 2 of the suspects is a member from that country, and also the member from the defense force, also from the country.
All right. So we can confirm it's one country?
Yes, one country.
All right. And in terms of bringing them back, how close are we in terms of this extradition treaty?
We are communicating with the officials from that country. The warrant of arrest were forwarded, so we are waiting for the feedback from them to tell us that they've come right.
Yes, as we now know, more than a dozen people killed in this, and you're quite right, this massacre, but that certainly is what it is what it was. And you framed it so nicely earlier when you said that without any arrests being made, the communities are living in fear. These are people that could very well be identified as possible witnesses.
Yes.
I imagine then, of course, community safety has to be paramount here, and I imagine as well that they're very fearful for their lives.
Yeah, we had an opportunity because there was an Ukaimulao operation this morning, which is why we were able to at least doorstop the top brass here in the province to just get a sense as to where these investigations are. But they were also joined by the community safety MEC, who also said that it's quite pivotal and it is essential that police make arrests in this matter so that there can be some kind of closure for the families, but that the community of Nomzamo can actually see some progress in this matter. Let's take a listen.
Police are still doing their investigation. There was a footage that they were able to find that can actually assist them to identify the suspects. And so far, they are working flat out in ensuring that arrests are done in relation to that shooting. At least with the Katlehong one, it has been resolved. Suspects have been found. One of them is an EMPD officer who was found transporting the very same people with Mamelodi. There has been arrest, but this one in Nomzamo, which is very serious because many people actually died. 15 people died there. That's why the police, in fact, we are holding them accountable. When are they making arrests? Because they've got all the evidence now. Theirs is just to act. Finish and clear.
Finished and clear. It seems to be the word that a lot of politicians are using today. I know there's going to be a full report from you for later in the evening, but I think a lot of people are curious. What's happened to the tavern itself now? Do we know?
It actually hasn't reopened since. When we were in Nomzamo with my colleague Joe Matlala yesterday, in fact, speaking to community members, many of them saying that they don't anticipate it opening ever again, especially because of what happened. You know, many of the victims of this particular incident, Gareth, were not even there to drink. Some just come to that tavern to maybe play pool, watch the soccer. In fact, one of the victims is a child who lived, well, not a child, but a child of that particular family who was there just to play pool. And it's just across the street from the tavern. And I think the neighbors were telling me that it seems the tavern owner just doesn't have it in him to actually reopen that particular place because of what happened and the lives that were lost there. So the community itself, as well as the owner, we understand is not going to return or hasn't returned anytime soon. Maybe the tavern may open next year, but for now it certainly remains closed.
Yeah, it's no real surprise at all, considering how it's affected the community. Slee, thank you very much. As well, we'll come back to you a little bit later, I'm sure, as we get ready for that full report later in the evening here on eNCA as well. Just a reminder as well that we are going to have more updates from the neighbouring tavern tragedy later as well, while we're on the topic of tragedies. That's eNCA reporter Silindelo Masikane.